So yeah, that was like basically we just did an hour and it was fucking epic. This might be a separate video, so either you'd be watching this and this is the beginning of a talk, or the halfway through the talk. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
I might release them both together.
I just want to do one mic check here. Mic check, mic check. Right, all right, mic check, 1 2. All right, back on air.
Yeah, let's do this. Shit, like that was like quite an experience, if you know what I mean. If this is watched at the second half, like I was going to say that on camera. Thank you for like basically talking candidly and being honest. And,
yeah. Well, thanks for inviting me, man.
Yeah, it's cool, man. It's a pleasure. Like you get as much out of this as you do, if not more, because it makes content for me as well as the actual interaction.
Yeah.
So it's like, but like, where do we get to? It's just like, or what could we get to? What, you know? Because we're talking about bass. I was talking about tuition.
And I was talking about metal and like metal work that I want to continue doing.
We didn't really get into that too much. Yeah. I went down like a massive hour-long tangent.
Yeah.
So yeah, like future plans. So that we could, like, we've gone into the past a little bit. We've gone into like kind of the present. But what does the future hold for Martin? Or Merc?
My aim is still to form this band, and
I'm gonna drop the mic down just a little bit gently. Just because. Hold on, I'll do it. No, it's covering your face.
Yeah. My aim is really just to keep advancing musically. And as in my ambition that I started out with over 10 years ago.
Yeah. We gotta get you a computer sorted.
I got possessed by a spirit, you know. So I wanna keep growing that spirit, and especially now with the beginning of a new decade. And I personally find this like 2020 really exciting because like usually, you know, it's always been said that by the end of each decade hip hop dies, you know.
Right,
so now I feel like now it's my chance to make my voice heard, and like I want to challenge hip hop community, you know, something different.
I feel like I know it's a bit of a meme, like the 2020 vision, like perfect vision.
Yeah.
But, you know, have you seen that meme going around? Like,
oh no, I heard some tunes. I heard some good tunes. Got real good lyrics. Yeah.
It's just like, I think that's like auto-suggestion, like national auto-suggestion, but it really has, the idea's got in my head. It's like a mind worm. It's like, realistically, like, something has changed. So the past few years, since obviously having a kid, and like, it changes you, but there's also like, my son is now just old enough that like, he's starting nursery full time in April, for example. So that means I've got 5 days where, other than spending time with Jen, like I've got maybe 3 days where I can just like fully devote myself to my craft again.
Yeah.
And like it's given me a thirst for it that I didn't have before I had a son. I kind of just like, you know, I mentioned in the previous like part of this video, like I had this kind of arrogance about me and this kind of like blasé, like, oh, I don't really care or whatever. But really, like, being deprived of music has given me a real renewed thirst for like.
It's like going through a desert, right?
Yeah. It's like all I want is water. Like, and when you taste it, like drinking water, like when you taste it, you're like, that's like the elixir of the gods. Like, and when you just like got like fresh rivers, you don't really appreciate it. But, like, although you can go for a swim, you know. But like, yeah, it's kind of like, yeah. So, but music is the difficult one for me because like a lot of I will come back to metallurgy. I will keep that in mind. So keep that ready to come. But like for me with music, I've really been struggling because, like say when my meds were off, like I was talking about earlier, like I can improvise crazy jazz, but to get to that ability, there's like a wall of these demonic voices and like bad memories and trauma and all this shit. That's like kind of the reason I got into that sloppy, lazy, dismissive state with music. And now I've got to the point where I'm coming out the other side of early fatherhood, and I'm like, actually, like, I think now with the changes I'm making in my life, I might have the resilience to challenge those demons, and they've been whether you call them demons or like shadow material, or like repressed aspects of the self that are like violently trying to come out. Like at the end of the day, like I feel more at 33 this year. I feel more confident in who I am than I ever have before. I feel more strength in like, and I don't mean physical strength, I mean literally like I know what I can tolerate now. And like I'm sorry, it's hard to express. Like basically like I've started to expect more of myself. And the more I expect of myself, and the more, like we were talking about earlier, like that intellectual self-honesty, that kind of like consistency, that integrity. And it's all about fucking integrity for me at the moment, and that's what I need to apply to music. Is like, I fucking love music, and if I have to go through hell to get to heaven, which is my self-expression and connection with my art, and like re-own all these like very horrifically removed parts of myself that were blocked out, like I have to know I can endure it.
Yeah.
And the thing that again, being a parent has really demonstrated for me is like, if I just like release the reins and don't do a dad thing, like if I'm not doing what I'm doing now, like it will descend into chaos. And there's like a tremendous amount of responsibility, but for the first time in my life, I'm running towards it instead of away from it.
Well, yeah. Well, respect for that. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and it starts with that, you know. Could be making your bed, it could be brushing your teeth, it could be fucking like owning up to something. Do you know what I mean? Like being honest, like just and not being deceitful, just being like, you know, like authentic. But like people don't realize how incredibly difficult it is when you live the life of like that denial we were talking about. Like how much of a leap it is to go from dishonest to even yourself to like honest with everyone.
Well, this is a very interesting topic about this. Like, I mean, early coming back to your earlier question about how come, you know, like you since you came here and this kid that you came to UK and then now 10 years later you're this dude, right? And well, I mean, I have to mention my very earliest formations that sort of made me who I am today, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
So, when I was a kid, right, about age of 8, I simulated being sick. I just didn't want to go to school.
Yeah.
And so my mother was like, "Okay, hold this thermometer in your armpit." Yeah. And so she goes to work, and I'll come back later and I'll see if you're really sick or not. So I measured the temperature, and she was gone, and my temperature was average, and it was fine. It was just like 37 something, you know. It was fine. And I was like, okay, I gotta play with the thug life here now because I really don't want to go to school. You know, not that day. I just want to stay at home. You know what I mean? Like, I think that was the first time I took some ownership over my destiny when I heated that thermometer on a stove, clicking that like, and obviously it went too hot, and the thermometer broke, and all the mercury was on the ground. And I was all these liquid mercury balls, I was pushing them back together. And it was like, it was fun for me to play with. Mom comes through the door.
Like, horrified.
And she's like, "No, you shouldn't touch this, it's poisonous." Like, and I was like, what could go wrong? It's like, well, I was like, what, I would die? She says, "No, when you grow up, you could become impotent."
Oh shit, yeah. That's a weird thing to say to an
it's like, thanks,
like,
Mom.
You're gonna cut your fingers, mate? Like, a good one to start with.
Thanks, Mom. Like, no, really, like, my dick is fine. You know? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And, but otherwise, talking about this honesty thing, coming back from family where, like, I felt quite deceived by my parents from a young age because of my biological dad being absent, and so my stepdad was sort of covering it up. I think it was my parents was trying to do this thing out of compassion. So
were you quite young when he left?
So for me to not be too scarred by his abandonment, you know, and sort of like it was created in the court at the time. I didn't know my stepdad adopted me. And because of that, up until age 18, I wasn't allowed to know the truth about my biological dad. So they played along with that, like, my stepdad is my actual biological dad. So because of these lies, and I knew that I had a different last name before that, because of these lies, I was like started to become mistrustful of my parents. So in a way, the being scarred by deceit from a young age is what has turned me into a massive skeptic. So, like, what I learned from all this experience, the fundamental formation of that is, I think, even way before Mercury. I don't think I was poisoned by Mercury back then, but all this thing with, because, you know, it comes together with a name, Mercurialize, yeah? It's that's music project. That's not the identity of me as a person, but this is a further topic to narrate. That the overdose of deceit and lies that I had from a young age is what has produced antibodies of realness in me, and distaste and rage towards deceit that is sort of turned me into this very confrontational, like, not tolerating bullshit type of person.
Was there a turning point where that came out? Because I know that can't have always been... Do you know what I mean? Like, because for me, like, there was a moment only very recently where I began to talk about someone who violently abused me. And like that, even saying it now, like, it's really hard to talk about. It's not a family member, so that's, you know, it's fine. But like, even being able to use those words, like, it's triggered like a whole chain reaction of like authenticity again. Like, basically what I mean is, like, if, you know, like, was there a turning point, or have you always just like kind of been like fuck deceit, or was there like a, you know, like a maturing moment where you...
I had found it very difficult to open up about it. It is quite influenced my ability to speak publicly. But back about something like 10 years ago, when I just moved to UK, I had a relationship with a woman that it was an interesting relationship at the time, because it was my entry into the local scene here in Brighton, you know. And so I was involved with the protest sites, tree houses, squats, and all that. And the relationship with this woman that I had at the time was basically really friendly, and respected her as I still do respect her as an activist and all that. But back at the age of being like 19, I was like, I haven't developed a very rational rigor back then yet. There was interesting things. I was much more into hippie things, like, you know, like reincarnation, lucid dreaming, astral projection. At the time, I was well in outer space, you know, floating about. So I was like really open-minded back then that anything could be possible. Anything could be possible, you know. So I liked at that time to believe all sorts of things, and so I sort of bought into the game of believing something back then that lots of new age heads like really was smoking like crack, which was twin flame stuff. And I liked it at the beginning because I sensed a lot of power from that. You know, sort of, oh, I'm someone important, significant with this other person, and only us two are types of people like that. But then later I started to sort of really question the realness of this, whether it's really true or is it just an intoxicating belief. And back those days, like, listening to Bill Hicks actually was one of the voices of reason that has helped me to actually reclaim my mind and think for myself and think thoroughly through all of this. What is this? Is sort of like a game we like to play and make believe. And so I started to decondition myself from something that isn't real. So I was testing it. So since I started testing it, we sort of started falling out, because she couldn't really kind of sort of
Couldn't stand up to the actual like the questioning of that.
Yeah, she started to resent me for she thinks like that I was taking this scientific technological approach to this.
Well, in a way, I
No, but I was just being skeptical,
no,
you know.
like, I feel like because I've known people like that have been like that with me.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's almost like if you say something to question their belief system, it's almost like it means you don't love them.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I mean,
like it has to be this spiritually unique thing, otherwise it's not good enough.
well, yeah, like you got to play this game with me, or you're my enemy.
Yeah.
This is really weird, you know, because
it's that kind of like toxic on and off with love, like whether it's convenient. And I think I said to you something about this the other day, not directly the subject you're discussing, but like you're like a beacon sometimes. You specifically, you like you know, I said in the last recording, like you have quite a presence to you. And women feed on that. Like the wrong kind of woman feeds on that, and like the wrong kind of person feeds on that. It doesn't even have to be women. Like people are drawn into it, and then when they realise that that's actually real, they withdraw very rapidly. And it's like they think that they can feed on you. Do you know what I mean? Do you remember I said this the other day? Yeah. And it's like because in my own circumstance, like with my partner, I'm more inclined to believe there is some authenticity to the kind of dual-layered thing, because it was literally an instant meeting and inseparable, and it's hard work. It's not just like oh, we're blissfully in love, perfect, everything's perfectly forever as long as no one mentions that something might be wrong. Like it's not that kind of context. Like, and like when you meet someone where like there's a undeniable like spiritual spark, you have to accept that like you have to work to sustain that, and if someone can like just switch that spark off, that's like borderline sociopathic to me. You know. And like,
well, I mean, spark is fine. The spark between us is okay, but the belief is not necessary. It only corrupts the beauty of just like of any relationship.
It's like a drawing of a tree instead of the tree.
Yeah. I mean,
like the Buddhist thing of like you don't worship a statue of Buddha. You don't give almost any sacredness to the statue or the iconography. It's there to remind you.
Yeah.
But like even the idea of like enlightenment itself is almost kind of can be taken as like, in some people say anyway, that like it distracts you from the very thing it is, because you're envisioning it as something like
as a specific image, so you may be actually distracted by a real opportunity.
Yeah, it's like I made some.
You may be distracted from a real opportunity while you're clinging on to this ideal image of enlightenment.
Like with Jung, like I sort of drifted into earlier, like the anima and animus. Like you know, you miss out on the beautiful, radiant, lovable human being you're with because you're trying to make them fit a box of this thing you've forged in your subconscious.
Right.
Like that's so common, like, and like, again, to talk about my own relationship, that's one thing that I really value about it, is that like, we've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, and all in between, and there's still like, at like so many levels, there's this really powerful presence of like, mutual, like unconditional love, but it's not like, what am I trying to say? Like I see her as she is, and I feel like she sees me as I am. And it might have started as like, oh, we've got complementary anima animus, but then it like drifted down, and we both like and I'm talking about in the first few hours of meeting, like there was this like bang bang, we didn't even like each other, and then as soon as we both dropped that, like there was this immediate falling in love. And it's like, I believe in things like that because I've experienced it. But
that's different talk. That's a different talk. Yeah, that's your experience, and that's not something sampled from some book.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Yeah. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's like if you so if you had a mask on that I was holding over your face, and every time you talked and I changed your voice, like you might be way more beautiful than the mask, but if I'm in love with the mask and then I take it off and you're not like that, that's going to disillusion me and break a spell. And a lot of people are under this spell of their own kind of idealized.
Yeah,
partner or whatever.
it's like makeup.
Yeah.
Sort of like yeah. I'm actually quite worried about such spells. I mean, I think probably tolerate the other people's let's say makeup if they choose to use it. But I think the only thing I'm worrying about is my own makeup, and I don't even use makeup. I mean, sometimes I'm draw with markers on my face just for fuck it. Fuck it, you know.
Yeah.
But with just eccentricity, it's just I draw on my hands. You know what I mean? Like whatever. But like I mean, if I'd use makeup, I much rather use makeup to reveal my true being rather than hide my true being. You know what I mean? I don't. Why would I be a deceiver?
This is something. I relate to that massively, and it's like my favorite part of any new friendship or relationship or whatever it is like that moment where you get that first moment and of like you like, because for me, like, even having like thinking like an normal person again, I don't know, you probably know what I mean, but like in like putting the blinkers on and pretending that you can't see what's going on out of respect for the other person, but then that first moment where your blinkers come down and they see you, it's really powerful. You know, have you done Mark Maestro into this, like the holy moment thing?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like you just really engage with them at that deep level, and like like basically I really cherish those first experiences of like when guards drop for the first time in a friendship, like, or any interaction, where you see that bit of the glimmer of the true self come through. Or I don't mean that in any necessarily grandiose spiritual terms, just like the true identity. And like I've found that like this is distinct from romantic or sexual or anything involving like intimacy, but like I know for a fact now that if I allow myself to go into that state with any human being, I will love them. And even if it's just in that moment, the unconditional love just spawns when you get to that point where like you know you're safe. And like it might start with like one look where you catch them looking, or you know what I mean, and there's just a safe zone, and you reveal the true spirit. That's why people have sex, for example, like people that have chronic sexual relationships, like, and sex addicts and stuff like that, like they're craving that moment of unity that comes at the point of orgasm, but it's like a very carnal physical version of that, whereas like you can have, do you know what I mean, because it's striving for that moment of like heavenly perfection, like you know, like a neutral orgasm or something. And it's just like transcendent, like, but what people don't seem to gather is that like in the right context with trust and compassion and strength, because it's not like you have to be, you know, to be truly vulnerable. That's like holding your neck to a tiger. Do you know what I mean? Like most people are ruthless, egotistical bastards, but if you hold your neck to that tiger and it nuzzles in rather than bites your throat out, like that, he's an animal, you're an animal. It's a crude example, but do you see what I mean? Like,
no.
It takes enormous strength and courage and bravery to drop your guard.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Basically, I made it overly elaborate.
But I think those guards are there for a reason.
I know, and they need to be there.
Yeah.
But I just mean that once you get past that, there's this fundamental human recognition. Like, you call it the soul or the spirit or whatever. There's this recognition of like that which sees you sees me from you and stuff like that. So the only reason I mention this is because we're talking about like the authentic experience versus the deceptive experience. And like you were saying about like this romantic interaction of like as soon as you question it falls apart.
Well, no.
Or like
the concept falls apart.
Yeah.
The truth is its own thing. The truth is its own entity. truth is its own entity.
Oh, that's cool, Fred. What do you mean? Elaborate.
I mean, when you question a concept or a belief because it's like, for example, let's talk about twin flames, right? Now, where the hell did that idea come from, first of all? Back when I was 19, right, I was just not questioning it. Well, that sounds well romantic. Yeah, I'm gonna ride with that game, you know? But through a decade of, like, looking into in-depth, no bullshit psychology, trying to see it for what it really actually is, realize you don't need that concept. Now, like, if you look at the concept separately, the concept came from someone like maybe Stephen LaVey, founder, like, Satanist church.
Okay.
A lot of New Age stuff and New Age beliefs a lot of times came from there.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of this twin flame thing has just been sort of like corrupted by untrained minds. Original idea of the twin flame thing is in coincidence of opposites is very deep and true, real phenomena in nature, and you know, it's beautiful. And it isn't just a romantic phenomena of marriage. That's the way usually people like to perceive it when they fall in love or they start a romantic relationship. So, I mean, I looked into this really deeply, and there's a thing that goes all the way back before even 15th century alchemists. I mean, they call this phenomena coincidentia oppositorum, right? A coincidence of opposites, which Jung later on sampled and sort of elaborated and made it kind of digestible and translated it for our generation. Yeah, and but before Plato was talking about that in his book. What was it? Symposium.
Okay. Haven't read it.
And so, like, and then you start really, like, once you really dig into that, like, it doesn't really sort of require you to even be a romantic.
Yeah.
Like, the actual phenomena of whatever that is much more interesting than the concept once you experience it.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was driving at with, you know, with the holy moment and the kind of, like, if you got two people. Darren Brown's done this before. Like, he did it in an experiment in one of his TV shows that was trying to get a guy that was quite racist to save the life of a Mexican who were the people he hated the most. Yeah. And he got a Mexican guy, not the guy he got him to save, but a guy who was Mexican, to sit down and just, like, stare and just lock eyes, and no matter what you do, you just have to keep looking. And, like, they both broke down in tears and were hugging, and there was just this, like, he was describing it like there's just this overwhelming feeling of love and compassion and respect and this unconditional love. And I feel like that's why we have these guards, right, to protect us from that. There's obviously loads of real reasons why we need those guards, but at the end of the day, like, the fact that any two human beings, like, when you look at like a cat that loves you, or like a baby that loves you, and you're like, they just, like, stare into your soul almost, and, like, it shakes you when you see this gaze. Like, my son's gaze when I was, like, holding him as a baby, just, like, completely unfettered by any, you know, he was unafraid, loving, there, present, and, like, I would have to, like, look away, but, like, eventually I just let myself look, and it was like, it just, with so much, you could do that with anyone, like, and it just teaches me, basically, similar to what you're saying, it's like the phenomena itself, the actual experience of it, the description falls short so massively, like, and to utilize that as a way to basically savagely manipulate relationships, like, it sounds like, kind of, whether intentionally or not, kind of happened to you, and it's definitely happened to me, at least, anyway. Like, using these spiritual ideas and these spiritual principles basically is a way to facilitate the exact opposite, like, just to be selfish and self-absorbed and negative, without having those genuine moments of, like, sober staring into one another's eyes and realizing that we are the same, and that you can love anyone. Yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought, but you see what I'm driving at, is like the authentic, sincere experience you can't even explain to someone. Like, and when, but I'm sure you've done it with Mark. I think we've done a holy moment before as well. Like, just like locked gazes until like, and there's just like, you sometimes you cry or you get angry.
I never cried.
No, not you. But like with people I've done it with before, like you start tripping and you start seeing mad shit around all the head and everything. And it's just like you see the different aspects of that personality and all these crazy, amazing phenomena occur. And then at the end of it, it just all falls away, and you just like love. There's just love. Like, and when you actually see someone as they are sincerely, you can't help but love them. Like, sorry, that was a bit of a rant. Anyway, I've gone off topic. Remind me what we're talking about. But yeah, sorry.
What we was talking
really
about
powerful.
earlier about what is the ambitions for the next decade, for the future.
Yes, we were, exactly. Take the lead. I could probably waffle about that quite a bit because it's been on my mind quite a lot. But like, do you have any specific targets? Like, because one of mine probably won't actually achieve this, but I want to run a half marathon within 2 years. And I probably won't achieve this, but I want to run an Ironman, which is like a triathlon where I think it's 26 miles running, 26 miles on a bike, 26 miles swimming, something like that. And it's called an Ironman because you do it all in one go. Like, I probably won't achieve that, like, but like that is a goal, like to get fit enough and to get mentally disciplined enough that I can even consider doing that within 5 years.
Yeah. Well, for me, like I said, if I in this year 2020 could start off like this long ambition that I had, finally actually do it, because it's been nearly impossible to form a band for the last decade. If I could do it, at least start it this year, I think I'll be in a much more healthier state of mind. As in, I wouldn't have to think about building machine guns just to express myself, So like I've been also like taking much more interest in DJing. And like find it. There's two sides of me. Like I find it really curious in the art of moving the crowd. And the same part of me that wants to connect to the crowd and what is their spiritual, psychological diseases that they need to heal. Where, and then that same part that wants to rock the crowd is the same part that wants to form mosh pits. Because that's where I started from, you know what I mean? If it wasn't for mosh pits, I would never be dancing. I would never evolve to that part where I can just let go, not give a fuck, and bust my moves. And I don't care about busting moves, but I need to express myself honestly. So like I have had an ambition of an MC for a while, but I don't feel like a rapper. At the same time, there's this real need, and I don't have a need to be a celebrity. But I have real medical need to reveal what's hiding inside of me. And that is not changing my gender. That is not like injecting myself with shitloads of melanin necessarily to be able just to speak and be me. Like
there's also a sense of like a lot of people, like I think probably the majority of people feel like they need permission. Like I've struggled with this for years with music until the first time like I played publicly and like 10 people in the audience cried, and I was like, I wasn't even looking and I was so embarrassed, but I just sang with so much emotion, and like I wasn't technically perfect because like obviously on the bass like I can be pretty on point, like I can hide behind my technique more, but with a guitar like I'm not a great guitarist. I could play technically competent pieces, but expressively like I'm not comfortable on it. But like as a singer-songwriter, there's a real voice there of like that guard dropping again that I do. That is people when you have that right moment when someone's like stoned or something and you're like vibing with them and you just like you just sing that one line that really gets them and like you can feel them, like you can almost feel their goosebumps, like, and like you start to cry and then they're like I don't know how they would report this, but like the other day I was at a band practice and like we were playing like banging techno and like having a really good time making electronic music, and then I played one of my pieces called Hell's What You Make It, and like by the end of it like there were tears streaming down my face, like, and I've never sung that song in front of A, guys, because it's like a very emotional song, and B, ever performed it that passionately. And it was just like this new kind of found confidence from the gym and all that sort of stuff, like just like that authenticity, that integrity, just like fuck it, like the reason that I fail with my voice is because I hold something back, like it's like I'm waiting for permission for like it's now okay to be you. And in that moment I was just like, even if but you could see they were visibly moved, like there were tears in their eyes and like they were taken aback, but it was more about like they actually gave something to me. I wasn't moving them. Their attention on me gave me that permission. So I'm kind of saying that that's why I feel like music would be appropriate for you. Like, are you much, you know, like singing is something that we used to sing together. We used to sing Tool and like you were getting really good, but there's also that thing of like I was a bit like you need to be technically perfect because I was dealing with my own issues about it. And actually singing could like real like power vocals and real soft vocals and stuff, like I don't know, I was just thinking like, because for me that is where I do my healing. Like I don't cry, I just don't cry, like, I cannot cry. I think it's since I started taking the meds, like nothing, the only thing that moves me is singing to the point of tears, like.
Well, like, yeah, for me, if I'd have to talk about, like, where I would start this year liberating my voice, my expression, I think I would start, like, with something comedic, you know?
Yeah,
I was, like, really, I think, like, one of the artists that has influenced me most was probably Mike Patton.
Yeah.
Because, like, I was always amazed with that level of oblivious to their like reputational concerns, that the way of breaking through that concern and that pretension in the body is by allowing oneself to be foolish and express any part that usually you would feel completely inadequate to express socially. So I think I for me lately I just feel like, I don't know, I gotta start with some guttural scream and just allow it to
There's always
and
room
not
for
and
some
not
crazy
yeah
vocals in the seismic waffle jam, man.
and not decorated with any kind of like poetic romanticism. And I've done that enough last decade, and I've scrapped all that. I let that go. I burned that. I threw it out, and I'm like, I don't. It's really, like you said, like it's really hard. It's difficult to bring across real poetry. There was a part of me that was about, like, since 2015, completely immersed myself. Look, before I'm gonna poeticize anything with my words, I'm become poetry. I want to live poetry, so I don't have to invent none of that stuff and float about like Skywalker in space, thinking that I'm something superhuman, you know. And like I find much more beauty in mortality, and like the sort of
I'm almost getting the vibe like this kind of like I relate to it. If I'm right, I relate to it. Like there's been an end of faith in your life.
In my life.
Yeah, like you've given up because you've mentioned it twice. Things in that context, and I feel like it's like life has taught you to look for real meaning not just like go on flights of fantasy as we were both prone to, like not to.
Yeah, well, it
imagine
comes
these-
down back to this idea, like this whole pursuit of authenticity and consistency, right? So for me, I think before any other creative artistic projects, I think that for me, however many decades I may live ahead, I think the most immediate priority for me is just being consistent with my personal like original commitments, and it all started at age about 12.
Yeah.
I was like watching some Dave Chappelle comedy, like some little bit of like dude who stole my car or whatever, stoner
Dude
comedy.
in my car,
Yeah, like when I was 12, like I didn't even smoke weed. I was like I hadn't, there was no weed around, but I had this access to comedy and cartoons. So that was like the original influence that I was like, if I ever to have a job, that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
I'm like in my naive 12-year-old mind, I was like, that's the only job I ever want to do.
Yeah.
That or not, you know what I mean, as a job, as a profession,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so I did, it only took me like a decade later to realize, damn, this original thing that I said to myself is real. I may not be so funny, but the thing is that the original like stance, commitment, you know,
Yeah.
that's still there, and it's like it's so there. This foot I put down at age 12. It's that now I just become unemployable.
Maybe. Well, I don't like to say about fate and destiny and stuff like that, because like I believe in predeterminism and that nothing is random. I don't believe in chaos, so on and so forth. But like, you can choose your destiny.
Yeah, I know,
like-
I know, but this I know, like it can be edited and changed and all that, but
you can't choose who you truly are.
well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That was the original thing.
All you can do is
I said it back
discover it,
then
like-
when I was 12, and I'm still saying the same thing now.
Yeah.
So, well, am I really changing myself?
Well,
You know what I
bear
mean?
with me. Bear with that idea. If you were employable, you'd probably be doing some dumb fuck mundane job that you hate.
No, if I'd be employable,
Well, do you know what I mean? Like,
if I'd be employable,
there's that temptation there to be disingenuous for the purposes of money.
well, acting, that comes down to acting.
Yeah.
Like because I'm like some people say like I'm a great actor. Well,
think, like,
I have
when-
not
when
a single.
You embody.
I'm not an
characters
actor.
very
No,
well.
I'm not. That's the people think I'm a great actor because the true reason is because I'm not acting. Because
Yeah.
it doesn't pay off if somebody doesn't
But
pay
like
you.
playfully though, like you can.
I could
play
act
as
if somebody
someone else.
pays me. If
Yeah.
somebody pays me, that means I got a job. Then I can actually pretend to be this person. All right.
Yeah.
So far, like, you know what I mean? It just like it just does not pay off to be anything else but what I am.
Mm.
So that's that.
Well, I'm kind of implying that there's a certain gift to that because literally no other avenue is open except authenticity, then you're kind of onto a winner, because that's eventually going to pay out. Like,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like, and if you graft at authenticity and stop feeling like, oh, I should be doing, I should be able to integrate. Like,
Well,
I
yeah.
should be
Well,
able to-
this the original disempowerment I've been facing, and I've been scrapping away from myself like already
You've been listening
five
to
years
all
ago.
listening to all those people in the past, including me, telling you that
Yeah,
you need to adapt.
Yeah, yeah. Integrate.
Sorry,
Yeah, it's
adapt is
the same
totally
thing with
different
the same thing with the white America. Like
Mm.
like those Negroes being like, here on the land, and God given no land, and
Yeah.
and look, the only way we find out is just integrate you on the what is this a plantation,
Yeah.
and there you go. We have found you a solution and all that, but really we we need like. It's like whichever minorities in a country come to that place. It's like you either integrate, or you die in the
Or
streets,
disintegrate.
or you
basically.
disintegrate, yeah,
Yeah.
or something like that. Like,
But then what I'm saying is like you're kind of in a weird way like being directed down a very specific path, and if you can like take mastery of that and stop feeling like, because I know it's somewhere in there you're like, yeah, but
Yeah,
I
yeah,
need to graft.
Yeah,
I need
yeah,
to
yeah,
do this
like-
fucking thing. Like,
well,
I
yeah.
need to-
You see, hear me speak. Hear me speak. To a lot of people, I sound American.
I see. I can.
Yeah, right?
I'd never thought that.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
said-
Well, I was
yeah.
thinking a lot about this lately, and I'm like, I was born in Latvia, right?
Mm.
Nobody knows hardly like any people.
Turn your head a bit more that way when you're raising your voice because it's peaking the mic, man.
Hardly,
Just-
look,
just
hardly anyone, at least in UK, knows that Latvia even exists.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, let's talk. This is Great Britain, right? This is the land of what America used to be. This is, you know what I mean?
Hold that thought. I need a toilet break. Sorry, I've been I needed to go to the
Pause it,
toilet
right,
20 minutes
pause it,
ago.
yeah.
But hold that thought. We'll revisit there.
Yeah.
Be right back, folks. So before my bowels rudely interrupted the conversation, we were talking about kind of American culture and the crossover with Latvia, loosely speaking.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the accent and the kind of as we were kind of talking about earlier, the kind of like closed in nature of people in England and maybe America where they don't, which I can relate to as an Englishman and an observer of the Americans, like the American people. There's at least this outward perception that like there's different rules, different systems, something
Well,
like
yeah,
that.
like I wanted to talk about this thing as in like I was supposedly born in Latvia, at least that's what I thought. Yeah, but actually where I was born into was actually American puppet state. You see, because of the Nixon's 1971 law, war against drugs.
Yeah.
They just found another way. Well, not Nixon, just find another way to colonialize other cultures and suppress their traditions. Yeah.
Okay, I'm taking the bait.
Yeah,
Go with it. Yeah,
so
yeah.
in Mexico and South American shamanic traditions, they couldn't do that, right? We already know that because it's just too deep in their roots. The
Yeah,
same thing
yeah.
with the Latvian culture. Somehow they managed to do that just because maybe it was easy to push around, but our genetical character, which is very deeply rooted in psychoactive traditions,
Like mushrooms.
pagan psychoactive traditions
Mm.
with cannabis, mushrooms, other plants, it's still deep in there in our DNA.
Mm.
So,
Well, to be honest, like I think like we did it to ourselves first.
well,
if you see what I mean, or
the
they
thing,
did
the
it
thing,
to
the thing
themselves
is that if that law would not be imposed upon Latvian culture, we would never have to go to UK, to America, to have the right to be ourselves. You see, like in Latvia, I'm not allowed. It feels like I'm not allowed to be myself. And
So it's not just a legal thing; it's like socially as well. If you see what I mean, it's like the society itself is kind of top down, had that imposed on them, and now they enforce it socially. That kind of thing.
well, but you see it infiltrate all the way through in the psychiatric institutions. You know, we are being shoved pills down our throats of American dream, of American pharmaceutical companies, all olanzapine and all that stuff. It's just here. Just forget where you come from and swallow these pills.
Yeah.
And
And
like,
there's
the thing is
yeah,
that there's nothing wrong with me.
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
Why? Like, how can you prescribe me? You push down these pills. You give me these pills. Like when, like, there is no diagnose.
Diagnosis,
How can you like? It is.
Well, I didn't when they.
It's
forced
just
them on me,
modern day 21st
They
century
literally,
colonialism.
I went in and said, "Look, I need help. I'm experiencing this. I can't do it." And then I admitted to the guy, like, I thought I was going to lose my soul because I was freaking out, and I was like, it was this whole thing. And they took me up to the room after me being like literally shaking with terror and dread and trying to communicate. And they're like, "Look, if you don't take this tablet, we're going to pin you down and inject you with it. Now, I'd rather you do it voluntarily."
Yeah, I've gone through a similar experience just because I was homeless back then. 2014, it was, I was just like,
feel free to talk as much.
Yeah, yeah. In
about that
Latvia, I
as
was
you
just
want.
not feeling in a good place of mind. There was nowhere I could come back to. I was just like, I didn't know who I could trust or rely on or something, you know. So
I'm just being hammered by that process over and
yeah,
over
so I
again
was
as
just
well,
being
like,
cornered. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because I'm like sort of like fighting for my right, and you know, refuse to be oppressed by these legal sort of manipulations.
The
And,
funny thing with my own psychosis, like, sorry, you can speak as much as you need, but just like in regards to pharmaceuticals, like, a lot of people blamed me starting smoking weed on when I first started developing more severe psychotic symptoms, right? But it started with the antidepressants they gave me.
all right.
And I was smoking the weed to cope with the jitters and the overstimulation from the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which later triggered my psychosis, repeated suicide attempts, like all this shit they put me on, rather than listen to the 15-year-old boy who's cutting his arms because he doesn't know how else to fucking deal with like the horrors of his daily life. Like, so he turns it on himself. Do you know what I mean? And they throw these. Sorry, just like it's the like some people are really helped by these drugs, but like way too many people are put on them rather than just being given compassion.
Yeah, I mean, like,
And listen to it.
regardless of that, this is
Yeah.
this pharmaceutical industry being imposed through Nixon's law against black and colored and indigenous and people who are protesting against war. That's really the original reason for creating this law. But the thing is that
1800s with like opium as well, and like cannabis and opium in like the 1800s.
What are you talking about?
Like the first like legal sanctioning where it started to develop out into international law. It all started with opium with the Chinese rail workers and the kind of the Mexican guys smoking weed, and do you see what I mean? Like, there's an element of that in there as well. It's like tactically.
Yeah, but where did this happen? In America, right?
Yeah.
And
then it spread out to the whole global community, like this warm fear mongering. Like.
Well, look, here's the thing. Whatever happened in '60s of the psychedelic outrage and sort of like unknown experimentation on a mass scale in America, what was happening at the time. Further on, sort of like moved on into 1971
down the line,
let's criminalize these type of people by suppressing their favorite diet or whatever, but okay, look, that happened in America in '60s, and look,
and the UK as well. Actually,
I wasn't there. What's it got to do with me?
Yeah.
Like
I didn't agree to this shit.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody like. So how does this relate to Latvia? Why is this law? Because of whatever the hippies done in the '60s. What has Latvia got to do with that? Why are you coming to this land, imposing your rule because of whatever went down in America? It makes no fucking sense. So it's just like
nothing spreads like wildfire like fear. Like, do you know what I mean?
It's still, I got to say this. It's like so I thought I was born in Latvia. No, actually, I was born in America.
Yeah.
Just because of this law.
Yeah. Like basically, I remember I had a partner who's from Hungary, and like she said, like Hungary's like kind of still living up until now really it's a very like entheogenically repressed area of Europe. Like, if you see what I mean. So
what
like,
is?
Like Hungary. She always used to talk about like the difference between England and Hungary, like in terms of like not only like use of these substances that were shut down in 1971, but like the kind of the mentality that is reflected because of the lack of those substances, and then like this sort of Russian involvement and the kind of continued like impact of like a really closed down kind of traumatized society and stuff like that. I don't know anything about Latvia really in grand scheme of things like at all, so I just wondered if you kind of, because I don't know, I'm getting the vibe like that imposition of no psychedelics, basically no drugs. Like, because England's meant to be no drugs, but like we all know that like that is not the case. Like, and it's like, do you see what I mean? We're the ones imposing the rule, and we don't even obey it ourselves. Like as a culture, you know. America's even worse for it. Like you know, up until recently, like you got fucking gangsters smoking massive joints on, and it's like in the comedy, it's in the TV, it's in the popular culture, yet it's illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in the places where it's enforced externally, it's like there's the absence of the drug and the culture, and it's not their choice. Like, I'm trying. Does it any of this?
Well, this comes back to what I was earlier talking about the early black comedy and stoner comedy being shown on Latvian TV. Like had quite a huge influence on my career ambition when I grew up. You know, being comedian or funny man on TV, whatever. And then to pursue this American comedic dream at the same time, like the comedy that reawakens my original sort of psychoactive DNA,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like it was the American comedians that at the time that was experimenting with salvia divinorum at age 19. Is the comedians like Bill Hicks, even like bards like Terence McKenna at the time, like gave me an affirmation that this is not something to be repressed. This is something beautiful, potential. Like I didn't even know hippies existed back then, but I kind of sense a spirit of rock and roll or something like that. And this is what the spirit of this plant kind of like unlocked in me. My journey really sort of like started unfold much more radically from there.
Do you feel there was, as I certainly did, like, because it was so repressed and disrespected and hush and naughty, that like I went too far a certain direction with certain things, whereas if it had been legislated, legal, regulated, like I probably wouldn't have even cared so much. Like, you just see what I mean. So like, for example, my psychosis was triggered by taking too much ecstasy, and it's like if people were there like saying you can't triple drop and then do half a gram of ecstasy after not being awake sleep for 3 days, like I might have listened to them, but instead it was just like, fill your boots, man, do whatever you want. Like, and it's kind of like, I don't know if this is in your case, but I feel like that kind of repression causes people to overindulge.
Become very promiscuous, and that is just a phenomenon of 60s. We've already seen that. And I guess maybe that's the biggest lesson we can take from what has caused such a phenomenon as war against drugs, or war against
mental liberty.
So I guess we've gone through these generation cycles of indulgence and self-restraint into a level of totalitarian self-repression, and so we kind of gone through this wisdom now.
I'm enormously pleased to see the amount of data coming out and the amount of new experiments on psychedelics.
Oh yeah,
like, I mean, it's like part of me is like weeping inside because it's so beautiful that because like a magic mushroom like can save a life. Like in one session, 1 gram of a dried mushroom can be the difference between literal suicide and living a happy life for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe because they have this very catalytic quality of actually embracing the repressed authentic being.
There's also just like even if you have a really horrific trip, like the ability to feel anything other than just, because with depression, like I suffered from severe clinical depression up until like my psychosis, which basically was the antithesis of depression. It was like so happy that I went insane, like almost. Do you know what I mean? Like, and like, well, there was 2 elements. So I had multiple episodes of psychosis, irrelevant. But like, lost my train of thought a little bit. Just like depression becomes like a loop. You're stuck on a permanent loop. Like it's the same thoughts, the same feelings, the same emotions, the same experiences, the same till you like shut down more and more and more and more. And depression can be like sometimes it can be just no emotion because you're so suppressed. But ultimately it's just like it's like still water. If you see what I mean, like there's nothing flowing through it, so it just stagnates and stagnates and stagnates until you can't breathe. Like that's what depression was like for me. And then like when I learned NLP, that started to break that cycle. But for me, psychedelics were the thing that like brought me out of like until I experimented with certain psychedelics, I was gonna kill myself. And literally, I remember thinking to myself like, I'm going to try this LSD, and it's could, because I'm schizophrenic already, I'm already psychotic, right? That could make me die. Like I would, if it goes wrong, I'll kill myself. But I took a fucking risk, and anyone watching, I don't recommend it. Like I was lucky, but the point being that like those experiences saved me. Genuinely saved my life when I had no other option. Like I was like in such a position that like my every waking moment I sincerely believed, because everything was so horrific, I was hallucinating so badly and it felt so horrible that I actually believed I was in hell, like real actual hell, that this wasn't the world, this was hell, right? Not now, but that was like an unshakable belief. And it was when I took my first half tab of LSD that suddenly that belief wavered. It was just a little shake. It was just a little bang. And it was like, wait a minute. I could legitimately hallucinate without it being terrible. And it left me with a glow for months afterwards.
There you go. I mean, the hell.
It's like it saved me from hell. It literally saved me from hell.
Like, that's you know this classical image of Pan holding its head, sitting overthinking, in panic. Yeah, that's hell. That's just. Yeah. That's just the hell created by belief itself. By believing you're tripping on whatever that it is you are believing at that moment.
Well,
so the antidote I find to a bad trip is to pull out of any subscription or beliefs that we may have assigned to.
Which psychedelics have a wonderful.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is how I started to philosophically liberate myself from subscriptions I didn't even know I subscribed to from a young age. And then I'm like, that's how I became like sort of social alien because of that.
One thing I do have to say, I do respect the fact that you're very similar to me. Is that like you've got the message and are not, continually.
No, that's it. I'm actually not advocating.
No, right.
Those psychedelics.
No, I'm not.
I mean, this is not what the story is actually about.
Yeah.
The story is actually about, look, Germany, you can fuck off. Here's a bitch slap again. American woman, you can also fuck off. Pull out your fucking, your colonial sort of like, dicks out of the land which is not yours, and let us be. Don't need your intervention. You know what I mean? Like let us be. Let us be who we are. Like why are you putting your nose in there? You know what I mean?
Power, isn't it? It's the greatest drug of all, like control. And like the worst part about control, in fact, this is I remind myself of this when I get too full of myself. It's like the more you need control, the more you acquire control. It shows how little you have, right? Because the only kind of person, the power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, whatever. But it's like also like, to have any desire to be that powerful, you must feel so terrified. Do you know what I mean? Like you must feel so weak to want to be able to have to control other people. Not you. It's not you. It's just like, I think about that all the time. It's like these like super powerful social structures. Like it's not all just about greed and money. It's about abject terror. Like. And like I wouldn't want to. I'm never going to be, but I wouldn't want to be a billionaire because like you're at the top of a very wobbly mountain, like surrounded by wolves. Like, do you know what I mean? And like, okay, I'd be quite happy to have £100,000 in the bank or like £1,000,000, but a billionaire, fuck that. Like, that's a wobbly mountain, and like you have no freedom, you know. Elon Musk goes on Joe Rogan and smokes a joint to prove a point because it's legal in California. Is it LA? It's legal, and he loses like 9% of his shares instantly, like the value of his shares.
Really?
Like, yeah, like in one day. Sorry, it was 6% straight down. They recovered, but it was like immediately, like if he exhibits any humanity, if he does anything that his shareholders don't want him to do, rejected, down to the bottom of the social ladder, gone. And that's just like, at least at the bottom.
I don't think that's happened to Joe though.
No. But Elon Musk, that was what happened. Anyway, that was just kind of the point. Like, I was trying to make was like the need for power and the malevolent use of power is like the ultimate penis extension, if you know what I mean.
Well, you see, I don't want to keep focusing, and like I think, as in, I don't want to keep focusing on the dark side of this whole sort of like infrastructure and institutionalization of our being. I'm more focused on the antidotes, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So, like, let's say, for example, what America did to Africa, right? Bombarded them and sort of twisted the picture. But eventually there is sort of a fair play. There is something happening with social entrepreneurs, even in the entertainment industry. Somehow there finds to be a way to even things out and compensate for the damage done. Right? So if America has done that and sort of has at least attempted to and somehow compensated Africa for the damage they've done, right? Surely, therefore, Germany can compensate Latvia, Russia can compensate Latvia, America can compensate Latvia, right? You know what I mean? And then we could have fair play, and we wouldn't have to keep bragging on about these injustices.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I want to emphasise, actually, just putting all this aside and also responding to what you said, like, I don't think the global consensus is as aligned with reality as people think it is.
Have you seen Black Panther?
No.
You ever seen Black Panther?
I'll come back to that in just 1 second.
Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen it.
Well,
I know of it, but I haven't seen
but have a look. Have a look what America does for
it.
Africa. Wakanda.
Yeah. I know the story. I've read the comics and stuff, but I haven't seen the film. Some of them. I read like 2 comics or something. But I think, like, for example, the meme of like overpopulations. Like, there's just too many people on the planet, we can't sustain it. That is absolute horseshit. We can sustain upwards of 12.5 billion people with the distribution of wealth as it is. Like, without new technologies, without converting to renewables, without all these things, like, and these changes are happening. Like, the global drug reform is happening, global welfare reform is happening, global increase in socialist governments, global increase and stabilization and like progress is unstoppable. And like, it's very easy to get, like, you know, like we were getting bogged down in the negatives of it, but at the end of the day, like, it's the most socially cohesive thing, the most practical thing will win, and it is equality at the end of the day, like unity. And like, I just wanted to end as that little bit of a rant, because there's something I think about all the time. It's like on the one hand, climate change is devastating the planet. On the other hand, if it had gone slower, it might have taken another 100 years or so to get to where we are now, but it might never have changed, and we might have resorted to different measures. Whereas now, there is no way that we're going to keep using fossil fuels and impractical power supplies. And like, do you see what I mean? There is just there is so much hope, and it's all bears in technology, culture, equality, kind of a version of egalitarianism, like. And that is the way the world is going, because it's the optimized system. We're a global system. It's the most optimized form is coherence, basically. And like, it's all very good and well, like looking at things like, because we're seeing rising fascism, rising right wing stuff, like
Really?
Yeah. It's like you wouldn't believe.
I think it's all a hoax.
And conflict,
I don't believe it.
This conflict is there for a reason, because eventually
I
the
just think it's
pendulum has stopped swinging one way or the other, and now it's just like
I
rising.
think it's just same old gang shit. I think it's just money making, sort of like hoaxes and stage stuff. Like, I mean,
well, what I mean is, on the other side of that is the collapse of the polarity. That's what I was going to say. So, like, let me just get this idea out of my head. So, like, you see this like swing. At the moment, we're developing a tense, or a perception that there's a tension there that needs to either collapse or destroy each other. And ultimately, like you said, it's a game, and we're it's so easy to become optimistic if you look at like the science and the math and the kind of human potential, basically. Yeah, that's my bit said anyway. Well, I think that I'm probably good to end, unless you've got anything you want to close with. Like,
well, I personally think like people have to stop like subscribing to forces that is not their own. Also, I think people conform to these different like ideologies and like uniforms because they just don't have anything else more important to give a fuck about. And like it could be your nationalism, which is not earned by by you as an individual, you know. So like I'm not advocating personally psychedelics or Latvian patriotism at all. I'm just sort of where I was coming from is that look, somehow something has happened that has personally influenced me. I'm not trying to be a Che Guevara or anything like that. I personally feel repressed because of not having my own land. You know what I mean? It's like how come am I in that position where I have to tiptoe around people? I should not have to be in that position. Like maybe in England, because I'm a guest here, I'm not like you know what I mean? Like I don't have British passport. I'm not like fully integral part here. But like in Latvia, where I was born, I should be surely able to be myself, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And so even there, I have no place to be me. As in, I'm tired of feeling like a guest. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I get it, man.
So no, I'm not a ballet dancer. You know, I don't want to dance ballet. I don't want to tiptoe around people. You know, and so that's all I'm saying. I think, look, I personally choose to unsubscribe from all the forces that don't have
your interests,
individual interests. Doesn't empower me as an individual.
Yeah.
And whoever may again try to invade my space, I just push them away.
Yeah.
And that's it. I got to be me.
That's a beautiful note to end on, man. Thank you so much today. I'm fucking nice. Fucking great, man. Yeah, this has been a great conversation. Say goodbye to whoever may be watching.
Holla!
Peace.